Moving into Jumpy Mouthy Dogs, you might be surprised, maybe not, I don't know, but just like our shy and fearful dogs, you want to take internal stock of yourself first before you interact with a dog that you know tends to be on the jumpy, mouthy side. We're going to do things to facilitate lowering arousal. So again, talking softly to the dog if we have to talk at all. Talking a lot, talking quickly, talking in a high-pitched voice are all things that are most likely to excite the dog even more. We want to keep things chill. Be aware of your body posture, turning to the side, moving slowly, no jerking movements, no hovering over the animal. Use your environment to stay safe. I will explain a little bit more about what that means. Use defensive handling. We're going to go through some defensive handling stances, just like basic ones right now. And I encourage you to take our quarterly in-person defensive handling classes when they happen. And whenever we're interacting with these dogs, our purpose is to amp down, not amp up. Importantly, a lot of folks might think that when you have a dog who's kind of like out of their mind, panting, can't keep their feet on the floor, closing distance with you, hyper focused, all of those things, that they need more exercise. A lot of times, what these dogs actually need is more sleep. So we want to help them to see the environment as a place that facilitates relaxation rather than a place that facilitates like jumpy, shiny, exciting things all the time. Again, do you need a snack? How's your nervous system? What baggage are you carrying? You've seen this graphic before in body language class. Just to orient you again, when we talk about arousal, we're talking about low to high arousal. So down here is low arousal, and then it progresses up to high arousal. The valence can be on a scale or a continuum of negative valence to positive valence. This is the sweet spot here. Calm, relaxed, serene, content. We might see some blips of high arousal, positive valence, so happy, excited, elated, those things. That's fine. That's not unhealthy, it's not terrible, but we do want to make sure that the animal is able to come back down and to stay down in a more peaceful place. Too much time up here, and it becomes really, really easy to start tipping over to this. And this is usually where our problems start. So we've got a dog who's hyper playful, jumping, playing with you, and then maybe you are too slow to throw the ball, or you don't have the right kind of treat, or whatever the thing is that causes a frustration spike in that animal, and they tip from excited and alert to nervous, stressed, tense, and they might start to even get aggressive in that moment. So we really want to be careful around this pole here. And then down here, we've got sad, depressed, bored. This is a place that we're looking at with our shy and fearful guys more often. We're not really going to spend too much time in this quadrant with respect to jumpy, mouthy dogs. Keep in mind, whether we know it or not, dogs are learning from us all the time. That's something that all sentient beings have in common. We're all always learning from our environment, from our interlocutors, from everything. So the way that we react in a jumpy, mouthy situation will impact the way the dog continues to react in the future. When we see these kinds of behaviors, it's often related to kind of a mix of feelings in the body for that dog. They don't know what else to do with their big feelings. Maybe they want to approach you, but they're also a little bit scared of people. Or maybe they see a dog in the distance and that's exciting, but they've also had bad experiences with dogs. You'll hear me talk about approach avoidance conflict sometimes, and that's what that means. What we can do here is help them manage their own feelings by adding tools to their toolbox. All the suggestions that I'm going to show you are focused on balancing what they take out of the situation with your physical safety. So I'm not asking you to do intense training. I'm asking you to prioritize safety, but in such a way that the dog is still learning how to navigate the world in a healthy way. So let's watch some defensive tactics first.
If a dog is jumping on or near you, holding the leash with a straight arm and two-handed grip will help move the dog farther from you. Holding the leash with two hands gives you more control and gives the dog less slack to jump and bounce, encouraging them to keep their paws on the ground. Holding the leash away from you with a straight arm distances you from the dog until they calm down. The dog is never lifted by the leash, but once they are directed back to the ground, reducing their leash length discourages them from jumping. If safety requires you to separate yourself from a dog with a fence, keeping the dog at a distance with a two-hand grip and a straight arm, approach the gate. Keeping your arm straight, exit through the gate, keeping the dog on the other side. With the leash on your side of the gate, you can also secure the dog to the gate so you can call for help.
Once again, this video was not filmed at our facility, but you can see some similarities in, for example, the Fenway Park gates, the stray halls, some of the traditionals, and make some connections there. I'll remind you too that defensive handling doesn't have to be big and scary. It can also include something as simple as putting a toy in a dog's mouth so that their mouth has something else to do that's not biting at you or the leash. That piece is helpful when you're looking at it through the lens of supporting the animal with meeting their needs rather than just like stopping an unwanted behavior. So if that dog is overly mouthy, they probably could use more opportunities to chew and gnaw on things and like thrash things. These are all really species specific behaviors for dogs, and they're not opportunities that they're regularly getting potentially. So giving them a toy to thrash in their mouth is a really healthy way for them to express those feelings. Another way that you can use your environment is with what's called a tie out. A few things here. This video, it's obviously with a stuffed dog. I don't have a real video of a real tie out, partly because I've only ever had to use a tie out like twice, and I'm not going to put a real dog under that amount of stress just for the purpose of filming. So you can see what it looks like with a stuffed dog. This is highly contextual and depends on your environment. I'm doing it in dog tech right here, primarily to, because this video was shot for a staff training on defensive handling, and we wanted to talk through different ways that we could use different spaces in the building. So I'm going to show the video and then we'll talk about it. And let's watch it a second time and I'll kind of narrate it a little bit. So I've got the dog in a straight arm grip. He cannot bite me right now. I'm going to use my leg to put pressure on the shoulder joint against that fridge so the dog is able to wriggle out. Keeping the tie out high. So the point where the leash connects to the dog's neck goes straight up from there. This eliminates the possibility that the dog can slip out of the tie out. And for good measure, we'll wrap the leash twice around those cabinets. Those cabinets open out, which is potentially a problem. But again, you're using the best stuff that you've got in the moment. And then from that position, you can step backwards and away from the dog's face. This is another good reason to use a long line. So things you want to consider: structural integrity. Tying a dog to something that is like bolted to the wall versus a rolly cart will have different results. Even that cabinet that I use in the video, if that dog really wanted to hurt me, he could probably pull that cabinet off of the wall. You'd be surprised what a dog can do. These are situations that are essentially emergency situations, so you might still get hurt, but tie outs can help you to create distance and minimize injury. The tie point should be above the dog's head, and a slip lead is better than a clip to collar for this situation because they can get out of the collar sometimes. Partial tie out, which would mean that you've got the dog on a leverage point and then you're still holding the leash. That's better than no tie out at all. And just remember, this isn't a solution. This is just giving you time to like radio for help and figure out your next steps. It's also not a training scenario. If you are at the point where you're tying a dog out, something has gone really wrong, and we need to take a step back and make sure that we're supporting that animal effectively. But in the meantime, the focus is just on safety and efficiency. If you have the presence of mind, consider also the plan for getting the dog out of his tie out. So in this room, for example, there are two doors, which is kind of great because we have 2 points of access to get back into the room, get a leash on him, remove this leash, and move him out, right? You want to be mindful of like if there's only one way to get in and the dog is just like loose in that space, it's pretty risky to open the door back up, but that's the only way to get him out. The rest of these things we're going to talk about are strategies that help you avoid having to do defensive stuff. We're going to keep our rate of reinforcement high. That means that the animal is getting snacks and pets and whatever they find reinforcing at a pretty high rate throughout your session so that they don't get frustrated. That's not to appease them or spoil them. It's because they physically can't handle frustration right now. Like part of the jumpy mouthy behavior is very likely stemming from a very low frustration threshold, and that's something that we can help them build resilience with. So we'll set up the environment similar to the way we did with our shy, fearful dogs, where they have access to lots of stuff that they can make good choices with. I recommend doubling up whenever you can. With jumpy mouthy guys, it can be really, really helpful to have an extra set of hands. Faster reinforcement. You've also got more hands that can hold leashes. Keep in mind that the session starts as soon as you approach the dog's kennel. So plan accordingly to make the whole session smooth and avoid needing to correct the dog at all. Planning well will help you, again, avoid needing to use defensive techniques. Here are some games that you can use. Just like I said in the shy fearful section, you do not need to do all of these things all of the time with jumpy mouthy dogs. I simply want you to have a resource that you can come back to over time as you kind of like learn and process and meet new individual dogs. Ping pong is something that I throw into a lot of sessions. I might do like 1 or 2 reps of this throughout a session, but you toss food from side to side and it allows the dog to move their body and get reinforced without putting their paws on you. So they're moving their body, they're directed to the ground to forage, which is also a really great way to lower arousal. And then the next time they look at you, they get reinforced over there by tossing a treat down to lower arousal. You can start this before you even enter their kennel. If we've got a dog that's like really bouncing up at the front, just play ping pong over the kennel door. Toss treats for a little bit until you're getting like 1 or 2 seconds where they're keeping their feet on the ground. Take your time. Please don't, I repeat, please, please, please do not ask a jumpy mouthy dog to sit before you enter their kennel. They can't. They physically cannot do that. It is too frustrating. It is too stressful. Um, there are kinder ways to help them, and this is a way to help them get their paws on the ground in a timely manner so that you can safely leash them up. So this is an example. I filmed this with Gus. He's not particularly highly aroused here, but you can at least see what the mechanics looks like. The lily pads is another really useful tool, really versatile tool. I learned this through my time at Shelter Playgroup Alliance, but I've also learned different versions from a couple of different folks, particularly Ali Bender at Pet Harmony Animal Behavior and Training. What this is a set of preset stations that form a path from where your dog is starting to where you want them to be. So most often we use this as a way to get the dog from the kennel to exit the building. And it can be like a slow feeder or a snuffle nut, or it can be as simple as a little towel with a handful of treats on the ground, kind of every few feet from their kennel to the gate, to the exit. You might start with a really, really jumpy guy with like stations just the whole way, just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you can start to fade them out over time. In my experience with this, dogs don't usually need to do this for more than like 2 or 3 times out of kennel. This is what it looks like. This is JJ's shelter tech here at MHS, a senior shelter tech.
In the lobby with Amelia.
Not used it as much, maybe because we have been out. So, we have not been using it nearly as much as I think we probably will. So, I just figured I was in the key area and I was like, well, even though there's no one in the train, I still want to take a look at it. Okay.
Kids could have worked the vacuum. I told her last week, work your vacuum.
I'm like doing like princess treats.
Really?
Yeah, I'm running out. Like we're out of cream cheese or out of like a lot of mom stuff.
I know.
All right, so now that you've seen what that looks like, we're going to watch it again, and I want you to notice one, the way that JJ is handling the leash, and two, Amelia, which is the dog, her body language from beginning to end, and how much she changes just by way of having reinforcement on the ground.
In the lobby with Amelia.
Not used it as much, maybe because we have been out. So, we have not been using it nearly as much as I think we probably will.
Doesn't have a little bit raw over the place.
I just figured I was in the key area and I was like, well, even though there's
JJ has the leash position so that she can leash
Kids could have worked the vacuum. I told her last week, work your vacuum.
I'm like doing like
Amelia is getting progressively calmer as she walks.
yeah, I'm running out. Like we're out of cream cheese or out of like a lot of mom stuff.
I know.
Just really beautifully done. The next suggestion I have for you is to buddy up, especially if you are a newer volunteer or if you're kind of like getting started working in shelters. Even if you've had lots of experience with dogs, a jumpy mouthy shelter dog is a different thing for lots of different reasons, but just trust me. So when you have people to help you, you can work together to manipulate the environment. Maybe when you get out to the yard, you realize like, actually, it would be really useful to have this snuffle mat placed 2 feet over here because then he can snuffle while he watches the cars go by or like whatever the thing is, and you can have a person help you with that. When dogs are learning to chill, like I said, they need a lot of reinforcement. So rather than just like feed blindly, we're feeding them a lot, we're reinforcing them a lot, but we're reinforcing them for micro relaxation behaviors. So like soft eye contact with forepaws on the floor, we're feeding for that. Over time, we can get to a point where like over several seconds, they're relaxed and we can reinforce that. But in the beginning, we need to keep the rate of reinforcement really high so that we're managing their frustration level and helping them through that resilience building process. More hands and eyes are more chances to observe and reinforce, and also to talk through what happened afterward and game plan for next time. And it's just fun to work with your friends. I love setting up sessions with my friends. So we won't watch all of this, I'll show you a little bit, but this is a dog intro that MHS staff did we were using the training center, and well, I'll play it and talk at the same time because it's a little slow to start. So the purpose of this session is to introduce a dog who is currently off screen with this dog that you can't see yet, who's behind this visual barrier. I believe JJ's handling Oreo, and I'm going to be coming into the frame in a minute. I'm handling Chevy. Chevy is a jumpy, bouncy guy, so we have stuff for him to do besides hyper focus on Oreo. So we've got 2 people here. We do that first look. And then we walk over to get reinforced on the snuffle mat. There's actually a third staffer. Kathleen will be coming in soon. She's going to be manipulating the environment as I instruct. And then you'll find out later in the video, there's actually like 5 people in the room. Because this is fun. So let me speed up a little bit. So both dogs are just exploring their space. There's Kathleen. So Kathleen is now, they've both kind of indicated that they understand there's another dog over there and they're okay with it. Kathleen is just opening up part of the visual barrier. And this is not a super secure barrier. This is a set of X pens. So I'm gonna have, as we kind of like lower the risk, or I guess increase the risk, Kathleen's gonna hang closer to this barrier to keep it safe. Coming up here. And you can't hear it, but the team is talking the entire time. And I wish I could explain to you, like he is an out of control puppy under lots of circumstances, but he's doing beautifully here, managing his frustration level because there's so much to do in the room. So now Kathleen is taking the visual barrier almost all the way away. Got one bark there with a full barrier, and now we're going to move into opportunities for partial protected contact. Reinforcement has dropped because I'm a human and I'm not perfect. Arousal's going up, but we're at this point pretty comfortable with the body language, so we're letting them greet. And then we continue to talk through everything. And we do actually get to a point where they're playing off leash for a little bit. Sniffing each other. So it's cute. I want to stress this is like really advanced handling and excellent teamwork. I'm really proud of a lot of stuff in this video. This isn't necessarily like what you're going to be doing as a 2-star walker. What I want to stress with this video is the ways that we can use the environment to make our lives easier and the ways that teamwork can make our lives easier. So really get to know your volunteer friends, get to know your staff, build trust with each other. When we spend time doing fun stuff like this together, it makes it a lot easier to trust each other when it's something scary happening, and scary things happen. Additional tips and tricks. Sometimes a dog just needs to sheet cake. Like I worked with a dog once at a shelter in Denver. We were doing an arousal reduction session, and he went through 4 cans of dog food before he like visibly exhaled. And it was like, take a spoon, glob it down on the ground, glob it down on the ground, glob it down on the ground. The first several minutes of that session were very intense, and then he really started to loosen up and get his bearings. So it's not that you always have to feed that much food all the time. It's that sometimes the situation calls for it. There are also very many ways to feed a dog. You can feed just like hand to the nose. You can scatter food on the ground. You can have a bunch of treats in your hand and kind of like feed one at a time like a Pez dispenser. One thing that I like to do a lot, especially with shelter dogs that I'm kind of just starting to work with, is take a handful of treats in my hand, hold it to the dog's nose so that they can smell it, and then drop the treats in front of them. And that helps them to learn that food can happen on the ground. It's a really nice kind of easy way to do that because we want them to get more comfortable with foraging opportunities. A lot of this is sort of building up to helping them meet their own needs, and foraging is a really great way to self-regulate if you're a dog. So when in doubt, the bigger the feelings, the heavier and faster the reinforcement needs to be. Red flags for our jumpy mouthy guys that might indicate they need to be assessed again for their level. Dilated pupils with direct eye contact for 2 or more seconds, similar to our shy fearful guys. If they are clasping at your clothes or your skin, even if they're not breaking skin or leaving marks, I want to know about that. Once again, they're not in trouble. This is just an indicator that we can help them more. If they are circling around in front of you, like let's say you move away from them and they circle around in front of you and then jump up, or if they circle around behind you and kind of jump up on your back, kind of controlling your movement, I want to know about that. And if you're seeing any signs of aggression, even if you're not sure, just tell me what happened so we can talk it through. And we're going to take one more break, and then we will work on dog and people reactive dogs, which is the last kind of big bucket for 2-star dogs.